One of the most respected and influential officials in Hawaii, Fuzzy Richards dedicated more than half his life to the game of basketball. The son-in-law of 2018 Hall of Famer Jimmy Iona collaborated to form the Hawaii Basketball Officials Association, a partnership rooted in fellowship, faith, and family.
When my father took over the association, Fuzzy got 100% behind of it, and he and my dad, because they was a pretty close family, almost 24/7 talking basketball. Everybody loved Fuzzy because he gave so much in regards to not just during the game but after the game, and talking to whoever wanted to talk about it. So he was into talking to, get your hands off of him, right? Okay, I'm watching. Okay, next one's going to be a call, that kind of stuff like that. And he had a good demeanor about him.
Throughout his career, Fuzzy climbed his way up the ladder from youth and rec leagues to premier high school games across the state, eventually ascending to the Western Athletic Conference as one of the first officials from Hawaii. For 10 years, Fuzzy served as the president of HBOA, mentoring younger and up-and-coming officials.
He was always known as the quiet official. When in the big meeting room back then, about 80 or 70 officials out there, he would always sit in the back. He would do his, crossword puzzles and things like that. But when it comes onto the floor, he has a great eye for observing what you did good as an official and what are some of the things you can work on.
He was like just every day, like talking to you or talking to anybody. He wasn't above anything. He was with you. And if he talked to you and he corrected you, it was straightforward, straight with you.
Straight with not just fellow officials, but with players, coaches, and even himself, holding the responsibility of the job to a high standard of integrity and accountability.
What you see is kind of what you get. He was that kind of guy that was a quiet kind of guy, but he absorbed and soaked in many stories that his father-in-law, I'm sure, told him when it came to dialoguing with coaches as well as fellow officials. He was a great listener, and he adopted the Jimmy Iona principles of advantage, disadvantage, and he actually incorporated that as part of his game.
He actually admitted when he would make a mistake, and he learned from all of that, and just rose in the ranks, and coaches liked him, players liked him, and then next thing you know, he's doing University of Hawaii games, and he was well respected, I think.
Recognized by many leagues around Hawaii, including Manoa, Kaneohe, and the Armed Services League, Fuzzy's professionalism, leadership, and genuine care for others has left an indelible mark on his peers and the game.
I had a bad game. I called a technical foul on a coach, and the coach actually came out into the parking lot when I was leaving and actually kicked my car. At that point, I wasn't sure if I was going to be an official, so I asked him if he could watch me in the next game. And the next game I was at Kaimuki, he watched, he pointed out a few things for me to work on. But the bottom line, and the thing I always remember, is he said, "You did a good job out there." And so it's his quiet leadership and his little things that he can see that really made me as an official that I am today.
Thank you for being that mentor that we could learn from. And that's what Fuzzy was.
I just say, Fuzzy, I'm proud of you, man, and well deserved. And it couldn't have happened to a better person. And I know he's looking down right now, and he's probably hopefully we'll have a beer together on this one. Yeah. So, great job.
The love for the game, the love for friends, the love for his family. Now with an honor that just makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Congratulations to 2022 Hawaii Sports Officials Hall of Fame inductee, Fuzzy Richards.
Hello everyone, good evening. On behalf of the Richards family, who's seated on table 6 and 12, as well as my mom Roberta, my sister Kiala, myself Ross, I want to thank the board and the committee for recognizing my father as one of the great officials, basketball officials in the state of Hawaii. Tonight is a truly honor, as well as a pleasure, as well as a privilege to be here tonight to accept this award, as well as induction into the Hawaii Sports Officials Hall of Fame for my dad, Creighton Fuzzy Richards. Back in 2018, when I sat here watching my grandfather get inducted into the Hall of Fame, I wondered to myself, is my dad good enough to be here? And tonight it cemented my question, and I thank you for that. He wasn't good, he was great. I'm going to recall some stories, that I shared with my father. My sister was too young for these memories. But there was a discussion I had with my dad, and he was done with officiating. I was done with college, and we were watching a basketball game, and there was just a lot of fouls. So I decided to ask him, what was a game you had the least amount of fouls that you called? And it was like a ridiculous number, like 2. And I was like, how can you just call 2 fouls in a game, And he told me his perfect game would have been 0 fouls. And he just wanted, he felt that. So I said, what was it then? How do you get there? And he said, I basically talk to the players. I engage myself with the players. I let them know what's coming before the game. I let them know while they're playing the game, what I'm watching. I see you, da 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 da. And I said, that's it? He said, that's it. And I said, no, there's got to be more to that. So my recollections, it's definitely more than that, right? It's hard work. It's love for the game of basketball. It's dedication. And of course, he engages himself. So, as a youngster, I recall going to those Sunday meetings during the basketball season at Kalakaua Gym, and it was a long day. I don't know what they talked about. I was in Kalakaua Gym playing basketball or running around in the fields or finding some kids to play with, but it was their Sunday meeting where they got critiqued about their work for the week. They got their assignments for the following week, but it was a long Sunday, and it was every Sunday during basketball season, which was probably about 5 months. And I'd go to every single one of those. Why? Because that was my dad. He played, in the off season, they played basketball at Holy Trinity Church, as I recall. And, at that time, I never watched them play basketball. I was a kid, I was running around, playing around. But in hindsight, he dedicated himself. He played basketball to keep himself in shape during the off season. And I didn't realize that as a child. He would practice. This was my most favorite part. He would practice his moves, his calls, his whistles in the house in front of a mirror. And my brother and I would sit there and watch him and laugh. And he would ask us, what do you think? What do you think? Is that a good one? So I'll give you my most favorite. This is his traveling call. He would actually, he'd practice his, blow his whistle, traveling the other way. I was like, wow, that's a pretty good one. But he had the feet dancing, right? So, but he would practice. He would practice at home, in private, in front of us. He would even practice his toss-ups, for the tip-off. And as my brother and I got older, he volunteered for the Manoa Youth League, so he had to figure out how to do tip-offs for shorter kids. So he said, come on, guys, I got to figure out how to tip off for your shorter kids, But he did volunteer at Manoa, as the film shows that he did mentor a lot. And I did meet Toad tonight over here, who's one of his mentors from Manoa, as well as I recall this guy named Ryan Suioka, I believe, who also joined the association. I guess basketball was part of my life, and I never even knew it. The UH games, the HIC is now called the NBC. That was my home for many years. I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, running around the court. I would go into the officials' locker room before the game and have fun with my grandpa and my dad and all the other officials for that night. About 10 minutes before the game, I get the word, get out, because now they're going to talk serious, right? Now they're going to talk about the game. They're going to talk about what's happening, and I knew where I would belong. At the end of the game, I stayed in the arena. I helped the custodians flip chairs. I went up and down the stands. I don't know if you guys recall HIC, but I would flip all the chairs because I knew we weren't going home soon. I knew they were going to stay in that official's locker room and they were going to have a talk, and that talk was not 5, 10 minutes. That talk was a long time. And we would leave HIC with the lights off. I mean, the lights, they're turning it off. It's all cleaned up, and we're finally leaving. So, it's just my recollection of this dedication that these referees and officials had for their sport. And I also recall a professional game I think it was an exhibition game. And I'm not sure, at the very end of the game, my dad whistles to me and he calls me over and he says, come on. So I run on the court. I'm not sure whose hand I shook, but I think it was Phil Ford. I'm not sure, but you know, he just had that connection with players. And at the end of the very game, he calls me on and, you know, has me go shake a hand with a professional basketball player, which I thought was pretty cool. I did have a privilege. I don't know if it's a privilege, but I saw my dad call the only 10-second free throw violation in my life. And it was against UH. And I believe it was probably UH's best player. I think it was Reggie Carter, if my memory is correct. But on going home, I said, Dad, nobody calls 10-second violations a free throw. Nobody. You know what he tells me? He says, son, the free throw before that, I told him I gave you 14. The next one's a T. And that's what he did. He gave him 14 seconds on the previous free throw. But that's the kind of guy he was, right? He'd talk to you. I did have the privilege of seeing his last official basketball game, and that was in 1983 when Iolani played Lelehua for the state basketball championship in 1983. I did ask my dad to throw the game so that Iolani would win. But of course, he's not that kind of guy. He has his dignity, and I knew Iolani would win anyway, so. But it was a privilege, you know. It was his last game. He told us he would be done. At the end of the game, a few days later at school, some of my peers said, you know, your dad's really good. He talked to us. He let us know what's happening. You know, he kept us in the game. He let us play, and that made me feel proud, you know. And I guess I just want to say thank you for your attention. Thank you, Dad, for making this game of basketball a better place in this state. Thank you, board. Thank you, committee, for this pleasure and this award, and just thank you very much. Appreciate it.